Hey everybody, welcome to Rico's. I'm your host Michael. So we're recording this episode, kind of late on a Wednesday night, and it's making me realize that I'll probably switch to recording on Tuesday nights so I can release early Wednesday for better exposure for you guys on your timelines, feeds, things like that. Just so it's a little bit less of a hassle for me. So keep an eye on out for that. Um, Again, we are recording the podcast now. We're video recording the podcast now, so I'll be uploading them on that YouTube channel, Rico's Podcast. You might be able to, I haven't tried to search it yet, but you'll be able to pick it up there. But otherwise, check the Facebook page for links, facebook.com/Rico's Podcast. We can talk a little bit about that at the end. But as far as this week, we're going to talk about Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, kind of review it, and also talk about that kind of action adventure genre of treasure hunting and uh, that kind of feel. And kind of talk about what makes that where I view successes in there versus some failures and things like that. People that have done it right, people that haven't, things like that. After that, we're going to talk about the Five Nights at Freddy's horror franchise and kind of the second wind success that it's seen. Or I guess, you could really consider it an increasing success, but kind of a delayed success, though. But we'll get into that. So come on in, grab a taco and a beer. Let's get started. So, topic number one. Let's talk about Indiana Jones. So I guess a couple days ago, I realized that Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade was available on Netflix. By scrolling through, um, and I decided to give it another watch because I said it once and I'll say it again. Greatest movie of all time. Period. No, but it's my personal favorite movie though. I watched it at a pretty young age. I didn't even realize it came out before I was born. It came out in like '89, and I was born in '93, so that's kind of crazy. But it was a huge deal for me when I first saw it because I'd seen the other ones first, and it was just this big story, and I really enjoyed it. Campy, yeah, maybe at times, but come on, come on, the whip. We got to find out how he's scared of snakes. You got flashbacks. It really was kind of a standout film in that it introduced a lot of tropes. It addressed a lot of tropes. It was its own original story and just had all this insanity with it. It has is a full-fledged boat chase in Venice where they cut between, two ships. It has, these ridiculous fight scenes with Harrison Ford, swinging and whoosh, these ridiculous sound effects, and still somehow comes off as, having stakes and being serious with, like the super serious Grail death at the end, and how it's like, oh well, this is like the cup of Christ, and it just for the gravity of that movie is so awesome to me, and a great cast. You have Harrison Ford, literal Han Solo. Um, you have Sean Connery as his father, which was an awesome casting. Um, you had John Rhys Davis. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but he's the guy who played Gimli actually in the Lord of the Rings series, which was fun to figure out. But you have some big names in there, and just a great it's just a great movie. I'm just saying. You have the German girl. That was kind of interesting. I see the thing I took away from this watch through. I don't know if that's a way to describe things, but one of the things I took away that I didn't get when I was a kid is they kind of subtly mention that the doctor. So there is a German doctor in the movie, or Austrian actually. I think it's because there's actually a few lines about Austria, but there's an Austrian doctor who we meet her under the guise of she was helping Indiana's father uncover hunt down the Grail, and it's implied that they kind of knew each other in the biblical sense. So it's kind of funny because that is revealed after her and Indiana have relations, and so Connery and Harrison Ford kind of have a few nice little back and forths over a few times over the rest of the movie, and it's just absolutely it's subtle. it's completely like it's. I mean, subtext. If you're a kid, there's no way you're supposed to understand that. Like, you're just gonna be like, I don't understand. I think he's just being a silly old man. I don't understand. Like, I don't know why I did a southern accent for the kid, but it was interesting. That was probably a takeaway for me on this one. It was like, well, they really aren't like hiding that, but I would never have gotten that as a kid. So that's kind of a fun thing. And the special effects, for the most part, because there aren't a lot of special effects, it's real. The graphical quality is actually pretty nice. Obviously, there's some green screens that are a little bit blatant in HD, just because I mean, there's just no way they would be able to hide that super well. And then, in that they didn't expect it to be played at the kind of resolutions we're playing it at. So that was kind of fun to kind of see which scenes were CG or not CG, but green screened. Um, but yeah, overall, it was great to watch it again. It had been a while, and I was a little concerned it wouldn't hold up, but it's still near and dear to my heart, so I really enjoyed it. Would recommend if you haven't seen it. Um, so what I kind of wanted to talk about, just I was typing out this, and I was like, oh, I kind of want to talk about Uncharted 2 and other Indiana Jones movie, and just I want to talk about this genre for a little bit here because I feel like it can go both ways. It is a thin line, but once you hit the recipe for success, I feel like it's you can just keep pumping out great story after great story. Uncharted, the Uncharted series, the Naughty Dog's Uncharted series, starring Nathan Drake as our kind of Indiana Jones like character. Although I would describe him more as Indiana Jones if Indiana Jones was just kind of like it was like unmiraculous. Like it was kind of like, oh, this guy isn't a genius. He's just kind of driven, and he has a really good he has a good knack for problem solving. He really knows archaeology, so those are his strengths. But a little bit more rough around the edges, a little bit more silly, but maybe even higher stakes. But anyways, Uncharted hit this formula of success with these super strong characters and another you know similar sense of Indiana Jones of not taking itself too seriously, walking the line between campy and adventurous and lighthearted, but also having stakes and interesting real life treasures and world-spanning adventures and just a sense of adventure. That's the word, adventure. That it captures this quest, this story, and it does it well. Um, Now, not saying Indiana Jones is completely perfect. We've all seen Crystal Skull, and by that I mean we hopefully haven't all seen Crystal Skull because it's horrible. Um, but Temple of Doom, even where like let's ignore a Crystal Skull even happened. Indiana Jones franchise still isn't perfect. You have Temple of Doom, which although has some really hilarious moments and some good stuff like Short Round, even though well that you may argue that one both ways, but um, the female lead in that one is less than superb, and some of the writing's a little strange, and this one's a little bit more mystic and kind of weird, where Harrison Ford gets brainwashed. There's some weird stuff. Monkey brains, chill monkey brains. Was that really worth an entire scene? But I feel like that's a fun. I feel like that's something we should. I'd like to see more movies about, or I'd like to see just more media. It's not even movies. I just feel like that is a nice genre that, well, maybe it is. People have tried to just throw darts to it, but I would love to see more stuff of that nature because Uncharted and Indiana Jones is like pretty much one of my favorite game franchises, one of my favorite movie franchises of all time. I mean, it's good stuff, and it is funny that they are so similar. I've heard Tomb Raider, the new ones, since the reboot. I've heard they are very in line with this, very enjoyable, a little grittier, I think, from what I understand and what I've seen. Um, but I may need to give those a try because apparently those are in my line of suggestions. But if you guys have any other suggestions of maybe things I haven't mentioned or things in this genre that you're like, man, I wish you would mention that right now. It's really, really good. Let me know about them. We can maybe talk about them another time, and I'll definitely give them a look because I'm a huge fan of this genre. But yeah, that's kind of wanted to share my thoughts on that for a second with you guys. So let's move on to the next topic. So Five Nights at Freddy's. So for you guys that don't know, I'm gonna kind of glaze over here. Five Nights at Freddy's, also known as FNAF, which is abbreviated, is a horror game, an indie horror game made by Scott Cawthon, released in 2014. I think August. Yes, August of 2014. So a little bit ago. Um, Really simple game, really bare bones, focusing on basically micromanaging a Chuck E. Cheese like establishment after hours, keeping track of these animatronics and not letting them get into your control room because they were free roaming for one reason or another. So basically, your punishment would be a jump scare, and it's just kind of jump scare management. It's making sure it's kind of a stress induced, making sure they don't get me. Really simple kind of game on the outside, with just increasing difficulty and an additional animatronic once you get to night three, and just kind of moving from there. So at front facing, really not that. I mean, it's scary, but there's nothing weird going on for the most part if you're not paying much attention. And if you play, there's a high chance you go through and it's just surface level creepy. And then it's like, oh, they just kind of jump scare me. At surface level, it seems, whatever. So it was very basic, but it was very well received. It started popping up everywhere. Everyone was talking about it. They're like, oh my god, this game's so scary, so scary. So I give it a play, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, oh, base level, this doesn't seem, I don't really get this. So I start to read up more, or I start to pay a little bit more attention too, and I start to notice there's some little nuances. Sure, the game itself is really stressful and scary, as I've said many times, but there's a lot of like strange happening and weird Easter eggs. Random things like It's Me popping up, weird rare shots of the animatronics doing weird stuff, glitches, um, games crashing with special conditions, a empty animatronic that pops up in the animatronic suit popping up in your room and crashing the game. Just weird things, posters appearing on the walls with different text describing children being brutally murdered. Like it like soup just opens up a whole new can of what is going on here. Okay, this is getting weirder and weirder. Which was his point. This was Scott's point going in, is that you have the surface level of scary, but then it gets grotesque and dark and involved, like very involved and mysterious. So he has this great success with this one game without answering many questions and keeping it very open-ended as far as lore and everything else. And then pretty soon after, I should have wrote down the date, but pretty soon after he released the second game, and then after that the third game, and then the fourth game. And since August 2014, he has released technically 6 games, including a full-fledged RPG, a simple RPG, but it is full-fledged. Many hours can be sank into it, as a full battle system, everything. He has developed 6 games in that world in the last 3 years. He has been pumping these things out, and each one has jumped on to the surface level creepiness. So it's not only he made the basic game scarier and creepier, but has also made the lore underneath more complex and more disturbing. So it's just been opening up this kind of mystery and universe around this FNAF franchise, and that's been very interesting to watch, because I love big universes, big lore, so I've been keeping track of it. And so yeah, he's just been turning out these games super fast. And sure, it had a pretty initial strong following, and it continued to have, a consistent, like a gamer following, like a suspected following of people that were playing these games. But I guess it kind of happened about a year ago. Scott starts licensing. He starts licensing all these characters. So you have all these different animatronics and characters he's made over these games, and he just started licensing the crap out of them, selling plush toys, action figures. He has gone overboard with these great advertising moves and marketing moves by making all of these very distinct and recognizable toys. And they've been showing up in kids sections of Target, Walmart. Like I see them everywhere now. I saw a bunch of FNAF plushes in a Buffalo Wild Wings crane in the middle of Tennessee. Like it it is blowing up. It is a huge phenomenon. And I'd already been thinking about this a little bit, but I went out to go play laser tag at a local like family fun center with some friends who came into town last weekend, and they know that I've been keeping track of the FNAF series, and they go, "Michael, look over there. This kid is having a birthday party, and he is dressed up as Freddy Fazbear, the titular character of Five Nights at Freddy's." Dressed up as the animatronic. He's got like a little like a hoodie. He's got the hat. His cake is a FNAF cake, and it's like FNAF, FNAF, FNAF with him. Like everything he has is Five Nights at Freddy's, and it's this huge thing. And it's funny because an entertainment center is basically where the kind of place that the FNAF story takes place. So we're officially full circle. Like it's completely meta at this point. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. It, it's amazing that a game that I can't even play through all of them by myself because I get either too stressed or too scared, depending on which game. The fact that I can't even do that and these kids are having birthday parties as the characters. That's just insane. I mean, I understand because at a surface level, these kids aren't going to really get any of the, scarier, crazy stuff. But and I'm not a huge fan of censorship, as some of you may know, and I may make a point of talking about later. But this is definitely a strange time for FNAF as far as this audience that's becoming huge on it. I wonder if they're even playing the games. I'm curious. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I imagine that they're playing some of the games, but like Sister Location, I couldn't imagine the newest installment. I couldn't imagine them playing through that. I mean, it's pretty messed up installment. Let's be honest. These games have murder, possession, ghosts, torture, just dark themes. I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not one for censorship, but this is pretty crazy. But then again, it's pretty easy to make a distinction between the animatronics and the actual, games. And as I said, I don't even know if these kids are playing these games. But that's just kind of an interesting thing. I'm not trying to say anything with that. I hate when people do that. I'm just observing the interesting phenomenon, this interesting second wind caused by this good licensing by Scott that has created this huge teen following of his characters in his game series. And it's just very interesting to me. It's very interesting this second wave of success and how well he's been capitalizing it. And I wonder how other indie horror developers may take note of this, or if they can even replicate this. This is such a phenomenon of these 6 games in 3 years, and rumors of more. A movie, a theme park ride. He had a horror haunted house that he had sponsored in Vegas. I mean, this guy is a phenomenon right now with his franchise, and it is very interesting to see the effects of it. Um, so yeah, that's about all I wanted to say about FNAF. But let me know if you guys have any questions about that. I love talking FNAF, especially if you guys follow the lore. We could have a day for that. I could do probably 3 whole episodes about just FNAF lore, but nobody wants to hear that. Anyways, so things to expect coming in the future. We may have a vacation episode coming in February. I'll be going to Lake Tahoe sometime in February. So we might do because I'll be with 2 of my good friends, Dusty and Nathan, and we may do a nice little vacation episode, include them in, maybe do some topics they both like to talk about. We'll see about that. But until then, you guys can find me at facebook.com/Rico's podcast. Get the YouTube channel links from there. You can also follow me directly on Twitter at Mike J. Millen. And Google Play is going to happen. I am working on it. And I will post this video and also the audio from this video and the last on SoundCloud just so we can have it all in one place and so I can port that over pretty easily. But we'll make sure to get that out to you as well. Until next time, take it easy.